Hello, welcome to YCFT. Today we are taking a look at Hammer Horror. In particular, Hammer Horror's Dracula films. So this is going to be a 3-part series, and we're looking at basically all the ones that we know they've done vampire films outside of the Dracula ones.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Dracula ones with a particular set of characters that go all the way through. So this first one is going to be about Dracula, Brides of Dracula, and Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
The one afterwards will be Dracula Has Risen, Scars of Dracula, Taste the Blood.
Mm-hmm.
And the one after that will be Dracula AD 72, Satanic Rites of Dracula, and the 7 Golden Vampires.
Where things get wild.
Where we've not actually watched that one yet, so
No,
I'm quite curious about that one. So we're going to go through film by film. Not in insane detail. There's so much trivia around these films. It's maybe just like how interesting they are in the period that they were made. Like, for starters, so we start with Dracula, or in America it was called Horror of Dracula.
Yes.
Released in 1958.
58, yeah.
Starring Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. Probably one of the most famous Draculas
Iconic.
ever.
Yeah.
And Peter Cushing as Van Helsing.
Yes.
You got two staples of legendary British actors there.
Totally.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house. I must apologize for not being here to greet you personally.
Prior to this, the most famous Dracula would be Bela Lugosi then.
Yeah.
So I don't think America especially were not ready for this film. For this film, because this film was very sexy. It was very vibrant.
Carnal.
You got that really thick paint that we're meant to believe is blood.
It's blood that's clearly not blood.
Clearly not blood. Whenever like Dracula goes for someone's neck, it feels like a sexual experience.
Well, it's usually a lady's.
It's usually a lady's
with heaving bosoms.
Yes, the hammer way.
She just allows herself to be bitten because she's just in awe by Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
We didn't get any of that shit with Bela Lugosi.
No.
It was tame. I think most people consider, obviously the Bela Lugosi one, it's a classic.
Yeah.
Totally. Can't take away its legacy. But I think now, when people watch it, actually it's kind of boring. Not a huge amount of action happens.
Yeah.
It was obviously of its time. But then you get Hammer in 1958, especially as they go on, and it's just this explosion of blood and biting and colour, and it's wild.
It is. But initially Hammer did have an issue with the rights of Dracula with obviously Universal. Universal paid a lot of money for the exclusive rights to Dracula.
Sure.
A couple of years after this, Dracula let a public come in.
I know. Yeah.
So it got around it by making a deal with Universal.
Yeah.
They didn't want them to make a new Universal monster. Universal got distribution rights, I believe, in America or maybe a couple of other territories. That's why it has an American name. It was very successful. And the head of Universal at the time, in his memoirs, said that this film actually saved Universal
from bankruptcy
because they'd had a couple of flops.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yep, obviously Universal still going today. Studios go through ebbs and flows.
Just throughout history, horror saving the box office.
Because it's cheap to make and you got high returns.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Christopher Lee.
Let's talk about Christopher Lee.
He had obviously worked with Hammer before.
Yes. Hammer had long been established at this point.
And I think his first big one with them was Curse of Frankenstein, where he played the monster.
He plays the creature, Cushing plays Frankenstein. And Cushing is probably most well known throughout Hammer for either playing Van Helsing in the Dracula series or playing Dr. Frankenstein in the Frankenstein series.
He's Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars.
Yes, he's also known for that.
Christopher Lee is Saruman. He's
just let it live.
Count Dooku.
It's just a legend.
Willy Wonka's dad.
Tim Burton. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of cameos in Tim Burton. So we get this character. Obviously, he's very tall. I never agree when people say that he's good looking.
Christopher Lee, alright.
I'd say he's a sexy man by how he holds himself and how he speaks.
He's charismatic. And he is dashing. I think the Dracula character is sexy. But yeah, I wouldn't objectively look at Christopher Lee and think, that's just me.
Yeah.
But I get it.
And interesting, he doesn't say a word of dialogue after 10 minutes into this movie.
He has 16 lines of dialogue in total.
Yeah.
And that's quite a lot for Christopher Lee in a Dracula film.
As we'll find out, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird, it's a lot of hissing, and I think Dracula was much more physical.
Yeah.
And you got the iconic, the shots where they'll be looking up at his face, Spanning's bed, and you'll have the red eyes, which were glass contact lenses constantly hated where they were so uncomfortable.
It sounds horrible.
So there's one shot there. When we first see him, he has to run, jump over the table, and grab someone. He just ran straight past the camera because he couldn't see a thing.
Yeah.
Could not see a thing.
Imagine the camera like, Chris,
Yeah,
cut.
could not see a thing in those contact lenses. I watched a documentary a while ago. There's him and Peter Cushing talk. I think you watched it all, them talking through like different Hammer films.
Yeah.
And that was one thing he hated the most was those contacts.
You know what? Fair dues. Fair dues.
Glass painted contact lenses. It mostly follows the traditional story of Dracula.
Mostly.
It takes place entirely in Europe. They skip coming to London entirely, which I think just kind of makes the story a bit more streamlined. So with none of the Demeter, that does not happen.
No, we don't get that here at all.
You've got some interesting opinions on the male characters in this film.
I do. Okay, well, yes. So we start the film. So also, Hammer, they had a way of kind of streamlining their films, especially when they were adapted from stories a la Dracula. Dracula, of course, is an epistolary novel, which basically means it's written entirely in letters. It's people's accounts of what's happening every single chapter. Kind of makes it a hard film to adapt in that way. Dracula kind of cuts through a lot of the bullshit. And when this film starts, we start with Harker arriving at Dracula's castle. So Harker, I think, he's like the first character we are introduced to. I think we mentioned this in the mini-series video that we did a couple of months ago. I find Jonathan Harker a really difficult character to get behind. And it's not that I don't like the guy. I just think it's how he's presented. He's the least interesting male character, personally, I think, in one of the stories, in the story. And the way he's presented here, he's played by a guy called John Van Eisen or Eason. Does a good enough job. I just think Harker's a fucking wet lettuce. Quite frankly.
The main change from the story is he's not there to help Dracula with his state or to teach him English. He is there to...
He knows Dracula is a vampire.
Yeah, that is the biggest change. That him and Van Helsing know of vampires and are actively try to kill him.
Eliminate him, yeah.
Why did he choose Dracula as his first target? Because he's clearly not equipped to deal with this.
No. You have two very different types of masculinity presented here. Like, initially, you've got Harker and you have Dracula. One very much has all the power. One is also very much a toffee-nosed English gentleman who, like, is almost scared at the sight of blood. You've got two very different, like, opposing people here. And it's so obvious. I'll chat a little bit more about Harker when we get into, like, specific scenes. But yeah, he's presented as, like, you know, the very prim and proper English gentleman. And there's also something about the way that they spoke back then. I think, you know, the way actors were trained.
Very staged.
Very staged. We are introduced to one of Dracula's brides, who is played by Valerie Gaunt. I think she was in Curse of Frankenstein, actually. She did the rounds in a couple of the earlier Dracula Frankenstein films. And she goes to Harker, and she's wearing this very sexy, very revealing negligee, and she begs him for help, says that Dracula is keeping her prisoner in the castle. And you've got Harker, who is just showing very, very little emotion. And, you know, in his very prim way, he's like, yes, okay, I'll help you.
I'll help you. I promise.
I'll help you. Like, there's no oomph.
Yeah.
There is no oomph with Harker, and it bothers me. It bothers me all the time.
Well, I know you said we'll talk about specific scenes. He's only really got one more scene.
Well, this is,
after this.
So he takes it upon himself. He's going to kill Dracula. He's there to kill Dracula. He also knows at this point that the bride, Valerie Gaunt, is also a vampire. So he goes into the crypt, and he sees the bride, and he sees Dracula lying side by side in the coffins. He has ample opportunity to kill Dracula. He's got his stake. He's got his hammer. He bypasses Dracula to go to the bride first, and he decides to kill her instead. And I don't think it's something I'd noticed on previous watches. I've seen this film many, many times before. I studied this when I was at school. I also did it at university. I never really noticed it. But I think also, talking about masculinity, there's something in that choice.
Yeah.
That he could have killed Dracula.
Yeah.
He bottled it. And he goes for what he believes is the weaker of the options. He decides to take out...
easier target for him.
He kills the lady.
Which is ultimately his undoing. Let's admit, Dracula has plot armor in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
For the rest of the
Yeah,
movie.
that's fair. That is also fair.
It goes with an issue that I have. I say an issue. It's something I've noticed when I watch these. And I love these films.
Yeah, we do.
Daytime scenes last about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And no one in any of these films does anything until sundown is a couple of minutes away.
Yeah.
And that's what happens here. The sun comes down, and then by the time he goes to take Dracula, it's too late.
It's too late. He's missed.
And that is a theme. I constantly think, why are you always doing things in the evening?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you wait until he's going to wake up to try and kill him? Why don't you do this at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like there's a lot of decisions like that kind of plague the Hammer movies. But that is essentially where we start this film. Harker botches the job and also is turned into a vampire by Dracula. Something we'll chat about, I suppose, but he does tend to prefer the ladies.
He does.
I think that is his choice. If he has the choice, he would rather go for a young, beautiful bride. If he has to kill a guy, he'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily his
Vintage.
first choice. Yes, exactly, his vintage.
Where's the plot go on after? So we're introduced to Peter Cushing. He's trying to track down Harker because he's not heard from him, but Dracula has left the castle at this point
Yes.
to go after.
Yeah. Oh, to go after Mina. Well, is it me? No, it's not Mina. He goes after Lucy. So this is also a little bit confusing. And I find a lot of Dracula adaptations do this. A lot of them change the character relationships and the dynamics of the characters, even so much as just switching characters entirely. So obviously in the book, he kind of goes after Mina. I think he sort of goes after Mina in the book. It's been a while since I've read it. A lot of the films make more of that relationship than I think is there in the book. In this, he goes after Lucy Westenra. And there's a lot of other changes that this film does. So in the book, Arthur Homewood and Lucy are engaged. In the film, Arthur and Lucy are siblings, which is a change I don't really understand why. In the book, Harker and Mina are engaged, whereas in the film, Harker and Lucy are engaged. So they change the character relationship. So yeah, initially Dracula goes after Lucy, who is of course in the book the first. Well, she is the one woman I think that is turned.
Yeah,
by
and I really like.
No one ever gives a shit about Quincy, by the way. He's just a character that's like always written out.
I really like how they portray Van Helsing in this one. Like,
of course.
Obviously, he's younger. Peter Cushing, he actually added a lot more physical elements into the role.
Yeah.
Just to try and make it like a slight. I wouldn't call this an action film, but to make the things feel a bit more physical. I think that's the biggest change that this does from like the Bela Lugosi ones. There is a bit more action and it's more energetic.
I have to say, I know we're talking about Christopher Lee and like, you know, much has been made of like the sexiness of like, I actually find Peter Cushing quite sexy in this. And I don't know what it is like. No. I mean that like, there's something, again, it goes back to how masculinity is portrayed. And Cushing, even trumping Dracula, I think, in this movie, especially in the finale, Cushing is the one man that has like that kind of not macho masculinity, but he is the one that is more action kind of oriented. Like he will fight, he will run, he will jump, he will punch.
Yeah.
He's quite a physical presence in the movie, and all the while has that very calm, like austere look to him and feel to him. And I just find that like quite.
Arthur was also a bit of a wet lettuce, but
Arthur's a fucking dickhead. Yeah.
Van Helsing kind of like drags Arthur up and kind of like gives him a bit of a purpose and makes him more macho. And it's like, I need your
help here.
Is that you can't be scared.
Yeah.
And one of the, we are going through this film quite quickly because it's, you know.
Well, it runs at quite a quick pace anyway.
So a big part of their plot is where is Van So looking. So obviously Dracula's doing his nightly visits and they're trying to work out, like, well, where is he? He has to be nearby. He's in the basement of the house, and I love that. And B. Cushing's character being very smart, he's putting crucifix inside the coffin so he can't get back. Then they've got to race Dracula back to his castle so he can sleep before the sun comes up.
Totally, yeah.
It's it's exciting for when things get moving. They really start to get moving.
It's exciting. It's visceral. Yeah, it's like we have an actual chase on our hands. Just rewinding a little bit, just to linger on Lucy for a bit. I always find Lucy a really, really interesting character. And I do like the performance in this because we get a little bit of a glimpse as to kind of how the book goes. Lucy, of course, is turned. She goes from being, this very angelic figure who has lots of male suitors in the book, anyway, to being turned into this, this wicked, wicked fiend. And the scariest thing about Lucy is her choice of victim.
Yeah.
She targets children. As very evident in the book. And we get a little glimpse of that in the movie here as well. And just to kind of linger on it a bit, because when you actually think about it from like a sexual point of view, obviously we know Christopher Lee as Dracula, he targets women.
Mm-hmm.
He loves beautiful women. And those biting scenes, they do play out like a seduction. It is almost like, it's the first time the man walking towards his bride in bed as she just kind of, lets it all happen and she's nervous. And if you kind of think of it, like, Lucy targets children.
Yeah.
Is there something sus going on there?
Darker.
A bit darker at play there. And obviously, this is a Hammer film. It's not going to, hammer that point home. But I think the inference is kind of there if you look for it. And also, interestingly, doing a little bit of research, children's mortality rate in Victorian England when the book was written was
very high.
It was not great. It was not great. A lot of child prostitution was it was well known. It was one of those unfortunate things everyone knew about. And also baby farming was very popular. And there were quite a few cases that would have been quite prevalent when Stoker was writing the novel. And I think a lot of people have theorised that that might have played a part in, having children be Lucy's choice of victim. So anyway, I quite like it in this adaptation how they do include that child.
Yeah.
Like she does target a child initially.
Should we go to the finale then?
We'll jump to the finale.
Yeah. It's very obviously Bela Lugosi is very famous. He's just kind of staked in his coffin.
Yeah.
It's a bit I'm not shitting on that movie. It's a different time.
It's a bit underwhelming.
Listen, we've had the chase back to Dracula's castle. Dracula's on the whereas Dracula's been on the offensive for a lot of this movie.
Yes.
He has to get back.
Yeah.
And he gets back, but not in time. He realizes he has to stand and fight. You say in regards to masculinity, it's weird to see Dracula and suddenly
on the defense,
have to cower away.
He is fleeing from Van Helsing. Like you can tell, there's panic there.
Yeah,
he flees up the stairs. I love that shot of Christopher Lee, just 6'4" of him or whatever he was, just running. Yeah. It's like Dracula.
Did he find his cape in some sort of costume shop?
Probably.
Not too long ago. Before it would have been quite a while ago, because Christopher Lee had to authenticate it, and that sold for $1 million or something like that.
That's true.
His cape is very iconic, the red lining. Billowing cape.
Yeah, and his his long legs just running up the stairs.
My theory is I love Hotel Transylvania, and I think the design is mostly based off Christopher Lee, especially the long dangly legs.
The long limbs.
When he was running up the stairs, I keep thinking of there's a scene in Hotel Transylvania where they're going down a corridor, it's quite short, and you see his legs are just
oh yeah, just running over his shoulders.
Yeah, and I'm like, that must come from Christopher Lee.
I think so. But I do love this whole sequence because, yes, it is very telling. As you say, Dracula he's been the one constant threat throughout this movie. And now he is literally running away from Van Helsing. And again, Van Helsing is the one with more of the power here. I mean, Dracula is still a threat, but he is very much shit, I need to get back to my coffin.
Yeah.
Because this guy is dangerous. This guy is going to kill me, and he can kill me.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how, the power dynamic, how it shifts here. But it is visceral.
I also like how they keep Mia alive by doing blood transfusions to try and stop the vampirism.
Oh, Mia's been bitten.
Stop the vampirism from coming on. But that's an interesting approach as well. Mm. So he has to stand and fight Van Helsing. And then something else that Peter Cushing added to the characters, and it's become really famous at this point, when he runs on the dining table and jumps and tears down the curtain. I love that that's not something that was even written. And something else, because he gets 2 candlesticks and uses it as a crucifix. That was his idea, because he's like, I've been pulling crucifixes all film.
Yeah.
So he's like, why don't I make one?
Might just make one. You use what you've got, don't you? Yeah. It's
I think it's more with the crucifix. It's more the belief that it's going to work, the intent behind it.
Yes.
And Dracula he's ultimately defeated it. You see his foot disintegrates. He's obviously burning away. This one did have to be cut down. The version we watched wasn't the extended version. I haven't picked up the Blu-ray of this one. Mm. But when he starts burning, initially they had it where they put prosthetics over Christopher Lee's face wax, so that you would tear his fingers down. And it's very tame by today. I found it online. It's such a small moment they took out, but it really does add to it. It dissolves into dust.
And again, like we said at the very beginning, you're not getting that kind of effect in Universal's Dracula movie. This is unique to Hammer.
Yeah.
Like, this was strong back in the day. Like, I mean, this is not a scary movie now.
Yeah.
Very few of the Hammers are scary.
Hammer always had to battle with the BBFC over...
Yeah, the gore and the sex.
Over the gore, yeah. We realised that when we were recently researching Curse of the Werewolf.
Yeah.
That got heavily...
That was butchered.
Butchered by the BBFC.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We'd like to shout out our groovy members. We appreciate everything you do for this channel and helping us grow. You guys are awesome.
The next film in this one, Brides of Dracula. Christopher Lee did not return. There's a Terence Fish directed all three of these. This was 1960. This one went under a couple of names because I think it was initially written for Christopher Lee to return. And for a while it was known as Dracula 2. Then it was Disciples of Dracula. I think a name they could have went for. And it's based on something they say in the film, the seal of Dracula. And that's what they regard to the bite as his seal. Like, that'd be a great name for a Dracula film.
I do think Disciples also would have worked because there is a line at the very beginning, the narration, the voiceover, where they say Count Dracula is dead, but his disciples live on.
Yeah. What's the name of the main vampire in this one?
Oh, God, the Baron.
Baron
von Meinster?
Baron von Meinster.
Baron Meinster.
We initially follow... What's the name of the character we're following?
Marianne. She is a French school teacher who has arrived to she's going to join this school to like train essentially to become a school teacher for young ladies.
Yes.
She's played by the beautiful Yvonne Monneau, I think. Stunning. Absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. And the film starts where she's in a coach. The coach driver leaves her stranded in this village, and so like many Hammer films, she goes into a little inn. And I love this. Like,
it's always the same inn.
Yeah, it's always the same fucking inn. But I love it in 1958 as well. It's like when Van Helsing arrives at the inn and everyone is just immediately aware that there's a stranger in town. I love it. It's such like a Hammer thing.
It's like in American Werewolf in London, as soon as the Americans come in, everyone
like...
stops and looks at them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they could just sense it. The spider senses tingle. But yes, and she's in this inn. She's stranded. She doesn't really know what to do because she's still a while away from the school. And then the Baroness Meinster arrives.
Yes, so the Baron's mother.
And invites Marianne to stay the night at the castle. They have dinner together. And by the way, the Baroness is played by the absolutely fucking phenomenal Martita Hunt, who very, very famous British actress. I think probably most famous for playing Miss Havisham in David Lean's Great Expectations movie. Very like stern, quite scary looking woman. She kind of reminds me of what's the actress that plays the nun?
Oh, I can't remember the name of
Bonnie Aarons.
Bonnie Aarons, yes.
She kind of like a similarity facially anyway. And the Baroness tells Marianne that she has a son who lives in the castle. He is mad, and therefore he is locked away, and he does not leave the castle.
Chained.
He is like, we're keeping him under control because I can't let my son out. And Marianne's like a little bit intrigued by this. We're also introduced to Greta, who is the Baroness's servant, housekeeper, companion, who's also looks a little bit sus. But anyway, Marianne takes it upon herself to free the Baron from his constraints. She goes to see him. He seems perfectly normal, very, very good-looking guy. He gives her a sob story about how his mother is cruel, has locked him
The
away.
actor who plays him.
David Peel.
He didn't stay in acting for that long, but he is great.
He's very good
in this.
Very different to Christopher Lee.
Yeah, he was actually much older than the role that he was maybe playing, though, wasn't he? I think they had to...
He's like 42,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, so they had to like alter his hair, like his hairline and whatnot as well. And
Leave me alone. You haven't taken it to my son. You little fool. You don't know what you've done. You don't know what you've done.
Mother, come here.
No, my son.
Mother.
But he's very good. A very different vampire to Christopher Lee. He's got a lot more dialogue,
Yeah.
for one thing. And so Marianne sets him free. And then, well, the Baron proceeds to kill his mother.
Yes. The idea of a mother keeping her vampiric son under lock and key to protect him and to protect others, that is such an interesting plot.
It
and
really
very
is.
unique for 1960.
It's very unique, like the mother-son relationship there. I really, really enjoyed it. Like, right away, it's different. It's exciting. And also, this is not Dracula. This is a different vampire. So I really do like that. There's something very kind of creepy and intriguing about it. And also, the Baroness did have an ulterior motive for bringing Marianne to the castle. She has been feeding her son with village girls, presumably, because like, apparently male vampires have a type. They all have a type. So she presumably did bring Marianne to the castle that night, thinking, my son's going to want a little nibble later.
After the Baron kills his mother, Marianne leaves. Is it Marianne?
Marianne, she flees.
Yeah, she flees.
And she escapes into the night.
She is found in the woods by Van Helsing, but again by Peter Cushing.
Yeah, he returns.
And he takes her where she needs to go.
Yeah.
And she seemingly then forgets that the Baron killed her mother, because when he turns up wanting to marry her, she's like, "Oh yes." And it's like, "But what?"
Marianne,
that was something that always bothered me about Marianne.
Marianne is not the sharpest tool in the shed. It has to be. It has to be said. I think that's fair. I do like her, but the Baroness is telling her over dinner, "My son is dangerous. My son is insane," and without a care in the world, she goes to then visit the son and set him free.
Yeah.
Without thinking of the consequences
But people start
whatsoever.
to die. Like, women start to die.
Yeah.
And Van Helsing has to get involved again.
Yes.
And I love his costume in this one. He has a real red coat. This costume in all Hammer films is always really good. But so the origins of this one. So they did initially write it for Christopher Lee to return, and we'll find that over these next two films, conflict as to why Christopher Lee wouldn't come back. We'll see different reports of he was either busy. I've heard some people say that he didn't want to return. And we've also heard people on documentaries, 'cause all these Blu-rays always come with like little documentaries about the making, which I really like, and they're quite new ones as well, say that a lot of them didn't like dealing with Christopher Lee's agent, who was always constantly trying to get more money. So we've got various different reasons as to why Christopher Lee might not have returned for this one.
I think somewhere in there is the truth.
So it's probably a mixture of all three.
I think it's safe to say, as sad as it is, Christopher Lee did have a very difficult relationship with this character. And I think...
You just didn't want to become typecast.
I know. I think there was trouble from the get-go.
Yeah.
And, even Cushing, over the years, they've spoken, they've said, we didn't do the Hammer movies because we thought they were great films. It's like, we did them out of loyalty, and we did them because they were fun to make, and we enjoyed the crew, and we enjoyed the atmosphere at Bray Studios.
To work with their friends.
Yeah, exactly. They all were really good mates. There was a nice camaraderie, but... So I think that there were always issues with the quality of the script that, loyalty aside, the actors were very much aware of.
Because in today, it was something like $750 you got paid for the first one, which in today's money was about $8,000.
It's not a lot.
Not a lot of money for playing that role.
And I'm assuming he didn't have anything to do with the profits
No.
either. That was probably not.
So there's probably multiple reasons why he didn't return.
Yes.
But Peter Cushing obviously did return.
He comes back.
He doesn't appear till like halfway through the movie.
This is what I really like about this one. Again, talking about its uniqueness and the strangeness, the mother-son relationship, and the just the eeriness of it. That she loves her son, because otherwise, surely she would have killed him. And she is literally feeding young women to her son in order to keep him alive. But she hates him, detests him at the same time. Yeah, and then we've also got Greta into the mix as well, who also loves the Baron and is kind of in a way like a surrogate mother. And that brilliant moment afterwards where Greta has that sort of like monologue where the Baroness has been killed at this point and the Baron is free, and you've got Greta who's like going apeshit like, "Oh, he's free, he's gone, he's free." But then she also she deadpans and she's talking to the dead Baroness like, "You spoiled him." She was like, "You know what you did." She was like, "He was always a wrong'un and you encouraged him."
But you spoiled him. Oh, yes. He was always self-willed and cruel, and you encouraged him.
And I really, really like that. Like this really weird dynamics between son and like his two mothers.
Yeah.
Essentially, I love it.
This is my favorite one out of these three.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed this one. And I think Christopher Lee did also turn down, because they wrote in a cameo for him if he wanted it, but he, again, said no, or maybe even his agent might not have even taken it to him.
Yeah.
It's so hard to... But there was also several different versions of this script. Who's the initial writer on it?
Well, Jimmy Sangster, who's a huge Hammer... Like, he was a key player back in the day. I don't. Peter Cushing was not a huge fan of Jimmy Sangster's writing.
Jimmy knows this.
Yeah, I know.
He's spoken about it.
Yeah, and basically, Peter Cushing said this initial script that Jimmy has done is a pile of poo. I'm not happy with it. So then another guy called Peter Bryan was brought in to do a rewrite. I don't know how that went down necessarily.
Well, Peter also did rewrite. He felt like he knew the character better, so he did rewrites on it.
Yeah.
Terence Fisher also did some rewrites on it. So it's kind of a miracle this film's even cohesive.
It's really good. And like you were saying, you know, Cushing doesn't really turn up until a good while into the movie. But because the initial premise and setup is
It's so interesting.
you don't really miss him at the same time. But, you know, don't get me wrong, when Cushing appears, I'm always happy to see Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
And then that kind of kickstarts into the second half of the movie.
Yeah, and so characters have started to turn, like women have started to turn into vampires.
A village girl has been killed, and there's a brilliant moment where Greta, it's like a weird birthing scene. You know, Greta lying on top of the grave of the village girl, and she's encouraging her to rise up. She's like, come on, just a little push. Just one more push. That's great. Yeah. The makeup on the village girl is awful, do I have to say.
Yeah. One bit I really like is when Peter Cushing arrives at the castle and he is met by the Countess.
Yes.
And she's like this. She's hiding the fact she knows what she's become. And you know, she's like, oh, there's no release. And Peter Cushing basically says there is a way. And it's like an unspoken thing that he will kill her to release her.
It's a mercy kill.
It's a mercy kill, and you don't really see that in these films. Like a character that's very aware that they're a vampire and does not want to be a vampire.
Don't think we see it again. Yeah. As far as I know, I think that is unique to this film. So again, like Hammer sort of tiptoeing around psychology here in a way that it never really has before or since. Like exploring, these weird dynamics, but also like the moral ethics of being a vampire. It is possible to be a reluctant vampire. Yeah. You don't always have to become this, you know, this wicked being. Yeah.
One thing I want to give this film props for, especially, is its set design. The castle looks incredible. Do we have the name of like the woman who made like a lot of the gargoyles and stuff like that? And
no, I don't think so. I should have written that down.
She's did some incredible work, and she also there's a reason we have a little bat here.
Clyde.
I watched an interview of her, like this movie, because in the first one they specifically said that they didn't want Dracula to turn into a vampire because they thought that was fantasy, but they do have vampire bats in this one. So she made 2 bats. Low-key one for like a low-quality one for like distant shots, but then a massive, really detailed... It wasn't actually a vampire bat she picked because they kind of looked too... I can't remember the name of the bat she went for, but she wanted one that looked a bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
So it ages working on it. And the props department lost it. How do you lose a massive prop bat? So they had to deal with the worst of the 2 bats that she made. I could tell in the interview she's still annoyed about it.
She's still bitter.
It's one of the things when I watched the film. Even before I knew that, I was like, the bat looks shit.
That bat was definitely
This
stolen.
bat looks better, and this cost you, what, $5?
This, I'm kidding you not, this was a $5. The one I bought online, it was this one, but I bought it deliberately because it looked...
Better look at him.
It looked bad. What actually arrived is a really decent looking bat. Yeah. So I actually wanted him to look a bit shittier than what he does.
Yeah, and the film wanted to look a lot better than it did.
Yeah, exactly.
It always bothers me whenever I saw that bat because it just looks cheap.
It looks bad.
In comparison to some of the really good set pieces that this film has in particular.
That's stunning.
Ending, the mill that it ends in, the windmill.
Oh.
This, I think, out of these 3, this has the best finale.
Yes.
And like Peter Cushing gets bit as well.
Does?
And you see him he pours holy water on it and then burns it, and that makes the bites go. It's alright, we've got some new lore there. The place gets set on fire. Do I say how he defeats the Baron?
Yeah.
Because he pours holy water in his face, and you see incredible burn makeup on him. And he runs outside. They've had to go up to the top of this burning windmill.
Yeah.
Jumps on it. Peter Cushing wanted to do most of his own stunts.
Yeah.
That one they wouldn't let him do, so they'd often have to get a stunt double do in there, they'd cut around it, so he'd do part of it.
Yeah.
It's just the way he was. He loved to get
He's fantastic.
physical. He's very physical in this fight. The Baron's throwing chains at him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He jumps onto the windmill, so it starts to move, and makes the shadow of a crucifix onto the Baron.
Yeah, and he can't escape the shadow.
And he can't escape it, and that is great.
That's very good.
I really, really like the finale of this film.
Yeah, echoes of Sleepy Hollow.
Those echo Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow has echoes of Bride of Dracula. Yeah, Sleepy Hollow came after this, obviously.
Much after.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even echoes of Frankenstein, because that was famously ends in like
Windmill.
in a windmill.
Yeah.
I really, really like the ending
Same.
of this one. I think this one did do quite well, but I don't think critically did very well.
It's satisfying. And also, just like to wrap up like the Marianne storyline, she ends up getting engaged to the Baron, even though she's probably spent like 2 hours with the guy in total, maybe even less. It's just another thing, why Marianne is not my favourite of the Hannah ladies necessarily. So he becomes engaged to her. Van Helsing is able to convince her that the Baron is behind all of these deaths. Yeah. We have another girl that's killed who is roommates with Marianne at the school. And I just wanted to bring that up specifically because when that woman comes back as a vampire, as soon as she sees Marianne, the fangs come out.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make the connection because it's also something that we see in Dracula 1958. It's a recurring thing. When Dracula or the vampire likes what they see, the fangs come out.
Say that you forgive me for letting him love me.
Now,
like anyone who's in English literature, this is some phallic imagery right here.
Now, it's like, you can't ignore it. It is there. It is clearly it's a sexual thing. Like that vampire is excited.
Well, even the way she talks to her, it's almost like she's apologizing. Like, it's almost like she's admitting to having an affair with her fiance.
Darling Marianne, let me kiss you. Yeah. So there's like little hints of lesbianism.
Potentially,
maybe.
Yes.
We can both love him, my darling. He's up at the old mill now. We can go there together. Come with me, Marianne.
So this film is it's interesting. It's considering this is a direct sequel to Dracula 1958. They push the boat out in a lot of ways.
I do like how the tagline is the most evil Dracula of all, but Dracula is not in this film at all.
He's not. The title is misleading.
It is very misleading. Yes.
Yeah, but the Baron is awesome.
The Brides of Dracula.
Yeah, exactly.
Dracula's not in this movie.
But it's more entertaining, I think, than the first one.
Yes,
it ups the ante.
I think I've watched this one more than the original because I find it entertaining. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, should we move on to the third and final one of this particular episode? 1966's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which marks the return of Christopher Lee. But sadly, Peter Cushing did not return for this film.
No, but we do have Terence Fisher as director again.
Yes. And this one, so it has probably the most iconic moment in all of the Dracula films, which is Dracula being resurrected.
Oh.
So we have a couple of Brits who are out exploring Europe, and they end up at Dracula's castle, and there is a servant that is still there, a familiar.
Yes.
Who says that even though his master is long dead, it is his wish that the castle always be ready to receive guests.
Yes.
My master is dead, but instructions were left that the castle should always be ready to receive guests. I am merely carrying out his wishes.
And eventually he kills one of them and drips in. This probably was quite a violent thing for BBC to let.
It's a throat slit.
It's a throat slit, hangs him up and drips the paint, we'll call it the paint, onto the ashes of Dracula. And through some incredible uses, especially for the time, of dissolves of different film, that you see Dracula build up from like ashes to a skeleton. There's a little bit of muscle, starts a little bit of skin, and the fog's over. And then it's one of the few times when Dracula comes back, he's naked. Even though we just see a hand, because usually when he comes back, he's fully clothed.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly well done. I really, really like that. And it's so famous.
It is very famous. It's very well done. What is particularly noteworthy about this film is, considering this is 6 years after Brides, but then 8 years after we've last seen Christopher Lee as Dracula, Christopher Lee doesn't show up until a good 45 minutes into this film.
The halfway point.
It's literally halfway. The first half is these 4 characters, Diana, Alan, Charles, and, oh God, what's she called? The Barbara Shelley character. Anyway, Helen. The 4 of them, 2 married couples, being warned against going to the castle, end up being forced to spend the night at the castle. And it's just like establishing the dynamics between them, the differences between the two women, between Helen and Diana. Helen is quite conservative, and she's she's a lot less fun. let's just say that, like a lot more cautious, a lot more reserved. Diana is a little bit more outgoing. Diana is married to Charles, and Charles is like also quite fun, also like live on the edge kind of guy.
Would you call Charles our main character?
I suppose so, yeah. And Helen, who's, you know, the reserved one, is married to Alan, and it's Alan is the one that's the first to die. He's the one that gets the throat slit and resurrects Dracula. But what I also like about this is, at first sort of glance, and I'm very aware that the sun has just...
Do you want to close the curtain there?
Yes, I shall. Ironically, talking about vampires. But what I do like is you kind of have two different styles of femininity. You know, to an extent, and just bear with me. I'm not going to go like too deep into this, but Helen and Diana. Helen as the reserved one. The more, you know, like traditionally kind of cautious one, the ones that warns them we shouldn't be spending the night here, something bad is going to happen. You might think that Helen is going to be the one that survives this because she's the one that's got her wits about her. Helen is the second one to die. And
I love when the way she comes back, and to be honest, she's a much more fun character as a vampire.
Helen is played by Barbara Shelley, who is a very prolific Hammer film actress. She returns quite a lot. She's in my all-time favourite Hammer horror, Quatermass and the Pit. And Andrew Keir is also in this movie, and he's also in Quatermass. This was before that, though. This was a few years before.
Yeah, he plays a priest, doesn't he?
Father Sandor.
He owns every scene he is in.
He's wonderful. He's such a presence in his voice. But yeah, Helen, you know, before she dies, she's Helen. She's boring, old fuddy-duddy Helen.
Why is she even exploring Europe?
Yeah, why are you here, Helen? You're such a fucking killjoy. And then as soon as she comes back, I mean, the hair is down.
The boobs are out.
The titties are out. The negligee is out. And the first thing she does when she is a vampire is to try and seduce Diana. You know, Diana.
Was there a little bit of repressed sexuality there?
Who knows? Who knows? You know, when you're a vampire, it's like all inhibitions are released.
And she does try and seduce Charles as well.
She does try and seduce Charles. Yes.
This is where we obviously see Dracula's return. And similarly to what Pierre Cushing did, Charles has to use he tries to attack him with a sword, he breaks the sword, but then he uses the remains of the sword to create a crucifix.
Yes.
To escape. And I quite like that.
Yeah.
They go to the monastery where Andrew Keir's character is.
Sandor, yeah.
Where we find a character called Ludlow?
Ludwig.
Ludlow, I've been watching a lot of Pet Sematary recently.
Yeah.
Ludwig, who's basically the Renfield character, and that we've not previously been seen.
No, he's not.
But they found him. He's kind of been cast out, or maybe just obviously lost his job when Dracula died. Yeah. I always like how the town is still incredibly superstitious. They won't go near the castle at night, and that's why they ended up there. Their driver literally let them out because sun was going down, and they wanted to get out.
Yeah.
And a car arrives to take them there with no driver.
Yeah.
So they essentially hide out at this monastery, but Dracula's got his eyes on Charles's wife. And it's explained to him, it's like, in Dracula's mind, she is his now.
Yeah.
She is his prey.
Yeah, so he's going to keep chasing and chasing her.
Keep chasing and chasing. Barbara Shelley's character does get captured because they both attack the monastery.
Yes.
And it's an interesting scene because it's actually, what's Andrew Keir's character called?
Sandor.
Sandor basically wants to explain to Charles how serious this situation is by making him be present for the staking of a vampire. And essentially, you said these, men all holding down this one woman where one wants to, essentially like penetrate her with some wood.
Look, it's one of those things. I feel like such an English student. I can feel that time returning to me. But it struck me for the first time as I was watching it. Two thoughts. First, this is one of the best staking scenes I've seen thus far in a Dracula movie.
I think it was also cut down a little bit.
Yeah. Barbara Shelley gives a really good performance. Like, she is feral. She is so feral. And I remember watching an interview, the Mark Gatiss one, where he, the history of horror, and he interviewed her. And she said she remembers filming that scene, and she personally thinks it's her finest moment.
Yeah.
On
one of
film.
her screams is replaced in the film, though, isn't it? One where
it's
where
clearly
she
dubbed.
sees, yeah, it's clearly in the trailer. You can hear a real scream. I don't know why.
Don't know why.
Did they not just do a scream that they liked?
Maybe.
Weird.
Initially, I'm thinking, God, this is really good. Like she's going for it. and there's only one way this is going to end for her. And then it just struck me, like, yes, there are 4 men holding down this woman, and one man is leering over her with a very phallic-looking object that's going to be shoved into her body.
That's going to penetrate her with some wood.
And there's not a damn thing she can do about it. And again, we also see a little mirroring of a scene from the first film. Again, talking about masculinity, the different forms of how it's portrayed in these films. Charles can't handle it. And Sandor, he does the staking, he saves Helen's soul, but when the stake goes in, Charles, he looks away and he clambers to the wall, and he literally, like a child, almost like he regresses in that moment. He cannot bear it. Dracula 1958, we have a very similar scene where Van Helsing goes to stake Lucy, and Arthur does exactly the same as Charles. He looks away in fear and kind of cowers like a child. He can't cope with it. And I do find this interesting, like whether Hammer was doing it on purpose or not, but you know, these different reactions. And fair enough, you know, like no one really wants to see, you know, a woman being killed with, you know, being staked through the heart. It's a horrible sight, and especially when it's someone that you know. But I like the different depictions. You've got one guy who's like, I can do this, like I'm standing up to do the job, what must be done. And then you've got the other side of it where can't look too much. Really interesting.
It is, and it's a correct scene. So that leads to Dracula is kidnapped. What was her name again? What was
Diana?
I always forget the characters' names, and I'm much
very easily.
I'm much better at remembering the actors. On his way back to the castle, so that he can basically bite her, bury her in the ground, and make her his bride. Sandor and Charles are basically racing back, and I think this is the advantage of not having any of these films go to London. Is it's like there's a day's ride rather than it's going to be a few weeks. And,
yeah, exactly.
And so they chase them back to the castle. It leads to a confrontation. Like the carriage crashes, Dracula's coffin falls out onto a bit of like frozen water.
Yeah.
And Charles goes to try and stake him, and they have a bit of a fight on the ice.
Yeah.
And they defeat him by they shoot the ice around Dracula's feet. Running water, I got something for that ice, running water, and he ends up falling through the ice and is stuck below the ice. Mm. Very unique way for him to go. His stunt double nearly died, though, didn't he, Christopher Lee? He got stuck under the ice or something. He couldn't find his oxygen tank.
Eddie Powell. Yeah, he was a stuntman who worked across a lot of Hammer movies, and it was specifically the scene where he's submerged in the water and the ice kind of refreezes over, and he couldn't find his oxygen cylinders under the water, so he was in a bit of a spot of bother there.
And then the movie just ends.
Oh, of course. Like
you see his face up against this. I give it props for being unique, but I don't think it's as exciting of an ending as 58 was, or even Brides of Dracula.
Or The Windmill.
This one I know is a very well liked and a very popular one. It is iconic because of that scene, but overall, I actually think it's the films that's most interesting. Like when Dracula's not in it, when he resurrects is incredible. But seeing these characters arrive at this mysterious castle, like by a carriage with no rider, their bags are already there. This mysterious butler. What's going on? What's this crypt? That is really interesting. And then nothing after that is
particularly unique.
Yeah. So I like it.
Yeah.
But out of these three, it's my least favorite. I got Brides, Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Yeah, I totally get what.
Yeah. Would your order be the same? Would you say?
I think it would be the standalone, like standout scenes in all of the films. And I think we've highlighted them. But I think in terms of like just general watching experience, by the time the second half of Prince of Darkness kicks in, I do find myself kind of losing interest. Like after Barbara Shelley is staked, I think I'm like, okay, like I know where this is going to go. Interestingly, this was one of the last Hammers to be filmed at Bray. After that, they started going to Elstree Studios. So yeah, that's memorable for that.
In all the later Dracula ones, very few of them start where the last one ended. This one, I think because they've been 8 years, they actually have almost like a previously on Dracula. And you just basically see, they basically just show the ending of 1958. I'm like, you know what? I get it. It's been a while.
It's interesting as well. And I think it will become more prevalent as we go into more of the Dracula series. But the concept of a sequel wasn't as fully fleshed out back then. Like nowadays, like filmmakers make more of a conscious effort to connect the films.
Horror is the genre that really pioneered sequels.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, definitely. But, back in the 60s, it wasn't really... I don't know if they just didn't see the need to do it. Because, yes, obviously we have flashbacks in this one of 58 to remind people, just in case you forgot what happened, or if you didn't see the first film, here's a few scenes. But as we go, it feels like to me there's like more of a disconnect between the films, and it's almost like they just didn't really see the need to
link them together.
Yeah, kind of unheard of now.
Almost an issue a lot of people have today. Say with like Marvel. I'm not going to always be able to just start like shitting on Marvel. The only problem people have these days is that they feel they have to do homework when a new movie comes out, and it's something that you kind of avoid here, like having that little bit like let's just show the ending of the last movie. But then a lot of them, they're loosely connected with characters.
Yeah.
But you can just watch them on their own. I watched these initially entirely out of order. When we started this, I started with Taste of Blood, and I had no idea what had happened around.
Yeah.
But I could follow the film.
You could follow it. Yeah.
I could follow it quite easily.
Totally.
I think that's a strength that these have. Although I think when we start watching them like one after the other, it probably will start to annoy me that one ends a particular way and then starts a completely different way when it's the same Dracula.
A random point I've just remembered. Something that you said when we were watching it yesterday is you felt that there were certain scenes with Dracula that would have benefited a lot more if there was dialogue.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, we haven't even talked about Christopher Lee in the dialogue yet.
There's no dialogue.
Yeah, he does.
There is zero dialogue.
So we've seen the screenwriter has said that he simply didn't write any dialogue for him, whereas Christopher Lee has said that he saw the dialogue and thought it was atrocious and outright refused to say any dialogue.
Yeah.
And looking at certain scenes, especially ones where he's like being very seductive, I'm like, this scene really feels like you should be saying something.
Yeah. Something is missing.
Something is missing from this film. And even he has so little dialogue in the first one, but he does speak, and he does speak in later ones.
Yeah.
Then it's a strange
choice. I will say, just generally, I know we're still like only 3 movies in at this stage. I do really like Christopher Lee's Dracula. He is not my favourite Dracula. And I think that is because I prefer the character when he is a bit playful and when he is a bit mischievous. And as charismatic as Christopher Lee is,
dialogue.
His sheer presence alone is, it's intimidating. There is something lacking in it. And I feel like if there was just a bit of dialogue, it would elevate it so much more. Yeah. I need Dracula to have a few, quips, and I need him to, I don't know, I need the character to be playful.
Something I really liked about Claes Bang's version of the character.
Yes.
He's very, very playful.
He's very sarky.
Yeah, but say that it says a lot that Christopher Lee can be so memorable and do so much without any dialogue. Yeah. There was certain scenes I'm like, I feel like they had words. There
should have been
words.
Because otherwise as well, it's like the link between him and Diana is tenuous. Like, why is he going after her so much? Why is he risking everything just for this one person? And I know Sandor does try and explain it, and he says, oh, well, he sees her as his now.
Yeah.
But it's like, I would have liked to have heard Dracula say that.
Yeah.
I would have liked him to...
That's him thinking when he goes after her. It's like, you feel like there must have been something written for him.
Yeah.
So, who knows? It seems like I said, Christopher Lee's like strange relationship with Hammer and with this character, and clearly with a lot of the writing. Doesn't make him sound like the easiest person to work with, but a lot of the people who spoke around have said that on set he's lovely to work with.
Seems like an absolute lovely gentleman, and class act. But I if I was a director or a writer, and if my lead actor just outright refused to say dialogue, I'd be like, well, get the fuck off my movie then.
Yeah.
It
kind of shows that
So I don't know what's true and what isn't there.
Yeah. There's a lot of different reports here, but if he did just outright refuse to say any dialogue, it must show how well his character is received, considering he's come back 8 years later. It's the big return.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not saying any dialogue, so he doesn't have any dialogue.
Yeah.
That is some. That's some balls.
Yes.
He's got a set of fangs.
And then yeah.
But clearly, he does, like Christopher Lee does continue to play the character now for many years.
Yes, he does. He does.
Up until, I think he now played... There's only one other person to play Dracula in this series of films, and that is in the last one.
Yeah. And this is not the only time where he doesn't have dialogue. No. That is something that crops up again. I don't think it's true for all of them, but certainly a few more to come. He has zero dialogue at all.
Peter Cushing doesn't appear again until AD 72.
Does he not?
No,
Oh,
I don't think so. I don't think.
Is a jump. You're probably right,
I
actually.
think I'm right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was a big thing that brought Christopher Lee back then. We'll drill deep into more. Is that he was done playing the character, but he wanted to work with his friend.
Wow.
That was a big thing.
Yeah.
Is him and Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were really good friends.
It's been, I know, and also, Vincent Price across the pond. He was a very good chum of theirs as well.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've seen Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. That's the one that
I've never seen that one.
So I can't say for sure if Cushing is in that one or not. I don't know.
We'll find. I will find out. As
We
I've
will
seen,
see.
the next two we're doing, Dracula Has Risen, Taste the Blood, and Scars. I've seen the last two. I haven't seen. I've been trying to find it. I cannot for the life of me. How is it easier for me to find Satanic Rites of Dracula
I know.
and the Seven Golden Vampires? How's it? I found both of those on special edition Blu-rays. In HMV, but I cannot find Dracula Has Risen.
We can't do it, guys.
But we'll see. Hopefully, I might be able to find it for the next one.
Yeah.
You got any more notes on these?
I don't really. I mean, there's so much to say. Like, there's so much trivia about these movies and so many different thoughts and opinions. We are big fans.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for this
Was it just because
project.
you've studied? Like, I would describe myself as a casual fan, whereas you've studied.
I did, yeah.
You love it. Like, you didn't have to go and get these books. You just owned these books.
These have been gifted to me over many years. Like, friends and family know I love Hammer. I love researching, like, the history of horror films, and Hammer's position in that is, it's profound. I'm a huge fan. I love talking about them. I do love rewatching them. I do have my favourites. But yeah, this is a really exciting project.
British film history, it's so important. So I'm enjoying going on this. I'm basically going on this journey as we're bringing you guys on this journey. A lot of them I've watched very recently for the first time.
Well, this is very much a Dracula series, but I think it's definitely on the cards. We'll dabble with Frankenstein.
I love the Curse of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
We do at some point this year. I want to do Curse of the Werewolf.
Yes,
which I watched recently for the first time, and it might be one of my favourite Hammer films. It was great. I loved it.
And Quatermass in the Pit one day.
Yes, Quatermass in the Pit. I caught the end of that on the horror channel. I've watched the last half of the movie and I really enjoyed it, but I was very confused.
Yeah.
I had no idea what happens in the first half of the movie, so
good.
I will give that one a watch. So
I think we're good. I think we're good.
Cool. At this point of recording, we haven't got any plans to record the next two, so it's either going to start next week or it might be in a couple of weeks. We will find out.
We'll try and be as consistent as we can.
When we've got to watch multiple movies and things, they take time.
Yes.
So thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. We're hoping that this could kind of become similar to our Stephen King projects that we do every year. We want to start doing classic ones. We're going to do some Hammer ones. We have actually purchased all of the Bela Lugosi Universal Dracula ones as well, so we might do one on here. Just diving into all the movies.
Diving in. Yeah.
And you never know, maybe one day we might approach them one by one in detail.
We might
kind of split them, like with the Friday 13s, I've split them into eras.
Yes, for ease.
For ease, yes. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week.